Today's episode is sponsored by Deltek, powering project success. Visit them at deltek.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello, and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm Chris Mahar, Managing Editor at SME Media, and your host today. We're joined by Padma Raghunathan, Product Marketing Manager, Manufacturing and Aerospace and Defense at Deltek. With a decade and a half of experience in the aerospace and defense industry, Padma is focused on helping Deltek's customers address their needs by developing manufacturing and quality management solutions. Deltek began in 1983 with the idea of making the complex easier by developing software that would bring industry-specific capabilities to project-based organizations. Today, the organization continues to focus on project-based businesses and now serves over 30,000 customers. Their mission is better software means better projects. I'm quite confident that better projects is a goal everyone can get behind. Padma will be helping us dive into kickstarting digital transformation for small and medium-sized manufacturers and how manufacturers can tackle resource constraints and technological inertia to benefit from automation and Industry 4.0, which provides manufacturers of all sizes with the efficiency and agility to compete in today's changing environment. Thanks for joining us, Padma. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much for having me on this podcast, and I'm really excited to be here today. For your listeners, just a little bit about myself. I am the Product Marketing Manager at Deltek, and I've been in the aerospace and defense industry for about 15 years now, and I've held roles in sales, technical sales, business development, and customer relations. And my experience, in leading and managing multiple contracts and programs with customers and suppliers globally has actually helped me develop a passion for delivering value to customers and partners. And in my current position, as I said, I wear the product marketing hat for manufacturing and quality solutions. And for those who are not very familiar with Deltek, we are the leading global provider for software for project-based businesses. And we have a suite of solutions, where we leverage purposeful innovation to enhance productivity, accuracy, and provide value across, the entire project life cycle. And specifically for manufacturing, we do offer integrated manufacturing solutions, that combines the proposal pricing, project accounting, purchasing, supply chain, materials, shop floor execution, quality, into one scalable, secure, compliance solution. And, we've been around, for a while, for more than 40 years and, serving, more than 30,000 organizations across the world, including several small businesses. So we serve the whole spectrum.
That's great. So jumping really into it, I know you've got a lot of experience in aerospace and defense, so sort of that government and defense space. And there actually are a lot of manufacturers that support that and a lot of even smaller manufacturers. Here in Michigan, where I'm based, everybody thinks, Michigan's automotive, but, even we have 3,000 manufacturers that serve the defense industrial base. So can you sort of go into a little bit about sort of that multifaceted role that manufacturers fulfill within the defense industrial base and sort of how these contributions really extend even beyond national security and impact the broader economy?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to delve into that. Obviously, let's start off with, let's talk a little bit about, defense industrial base and what it entails, right? So the defense industrial base is basically a network of people, organizations, entities, resources, if you will, that provide, the U.S. government, particularly the Department of Defense, with defense-related materials, products, and services. And manufacturers, right, now they have different aspects. So, they could be involved in manufacturing and assembly of critical defense systems, and that could range from, small components, to a complete weapon systems or vehicles, and even aircrafts. Manufacturers are also, heavily involved in innovation. They're also in research and development, developing cutting edge technologies, newer methods of manufacturing. They also, create, prototypes. They're into testing out newer, innovations and, validate them, against existing standards and, even try to determine, if we have to create a new standard because, technology is constantly evolving. And, when you talk about defense, obviously, you have weapon systems. You want to ensure, that you're able to manage and maintain their longevity and, ensure their operational readiness and in what they call the defense parlance as sustainment. And manufacturers, are also heavily involved in that aspect. And another critical thing we have to keep in mind when we talk about manufacturers and government contracting and in defense is that they are usually amongst, the first to adopt, industry-leading standards or practices, whether it's, something new in quality management or compliance or cybersecurity or data protection, right? So they not only ensure, that, national security, by producing, supplying, and maintaining critical defense items, but they also, are right at the forefront of, that new age innovation. So that's the defense and the defense industrial base aspect of it. How do, they contribute, beyond national security, right? So obviously, when you think about, the broader economy, the first thing is, think about creating jobs, right? They stimulate the economic growth, right? They drive innovation. And manufacturing, is actually a significant source of high-paying jobs. It contributes to the economic vitality of so many communities across the country, right? And they also lead in actually building a skilled workforce, right? Because you need skilled workforce, that's capable of meeting technical demands of modern manufacturing. So, and just due to the nature of the work that they do, right, they're, for the most part, they can actually, adapt, to geopolitical shifts. They're the first ones to actually sniff that there's change in the air, that the dynamics are shifting. And they always try to ensure, that their products and capabilities, are aligning, with these evolving market needs. So, yeah, so they do a lot of things and they're right at the heart of, the growth engine.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about how a lot of companies and manufacturers in the defense industrial base, they adopt those sort of new technologies and new processes earlier. It's sort of makes sense if you think about it, because if you're launching a, let's say, spy satellite up into, low Earth orbit, you want to make sure every part on that rocket is going to work properly, because that's a very expensive piece of equipment that you don't want to lose. And even though I know even in, this space, people might think of, folks like Lockheed and Raytheon and Boeing, but, there are a lot of small and medium-sized manufacturers that make up the defense industrial base. And really across the country as a whole, I always sort of say, 97, 98% of all manufacturers have less than 20 employees. And so it's not these massive companies when you talk about the scale. So how are these small and medium-sized manufacturers, businesses, or SMBs carving out their niche, and what distinct contributions are they offering?
Yeah. So that's great, because, yes, you may think, when you talk about SMBs, yes, small and mid-size, but you know what? They offer very distinct contributions, because, despite their size and scale, even they are heavily involved in innovation, right? Just think about them, right? They're a lot more flexible. They are a lot more adaptive compared to larger competitors, right? They're able to, quickly and rapidly pivot and implement, new technologies or embrace that change, because, they don't have that bureaucratic delays. They don't have to deal with red tape that typically plagues larger organizations, right? And this nimbleness actually allows them to explore niche markets. They're able to experiment with novel solutions, and, they're able to address some very specific customer needs and tailor it to what the customer and the consumer want, right? And because they're smaller, they typically have, and as you mentioned, right, some of them have less than 20 employees, right? So they have, they usually have closer knit teams where decision-making processes, actually enable quicker responses, to emerging trends. So not only that, when you talk about small and mid-sized companies, they typically provide personalized services, right? Because they have more accessible teams. So if you are, trying to get an update on your order, or if you want to partner with them, right? It's just easier to talk to them, approach them, than rather going to several layers of people and reaching your primary contact, that typically that you would have to do, with a larger organization. Another thing, with SMBs is that they play a vital role in fostering local economic development, right? They're often deeply embedded in their, communities. They create jobs, they support local suppliers. And, by sourcing materials locally, they provide employment opportunities, and they contribute to the economic health of, the region that they're operating in. And not just that, when you have a larger enterprise, for instance, right, they are obviously focused on, their larger goals. Like, okay, I have to deliver so many aircrafts, this year, they are looking at larger systems, larger weapon systems. But then, there are those opportunities which, these big companies could overlook, right? And that's where, I think SMBs, could actually bridge that deficit, right? And especially when it comes to, if in times of economic downturn or if there's supply chain disruptions, these companies actually act as a stabilizing force, offering alternate sources of, say, products or services or any special type of capabilities. So, and not just that, I would definitely add one point here, because the presence of smaller companies, also keeps the industry at large, including larger companies, on their toes, right? Because this dynamic not only spurs, an innovation race, if you will, but it also ensures that the industry standards remain high and that consumers benefit from a diverse range of options.
Yeah, and I think you really hit it on the point that these teams are more close-knit. And by also having, working with a number of smaller manufacturers, you really are limiting the risk, if you think about it, because if you're working with one single source supplier and they have a cyber attack or their systems go down, you're done. But if you've got it spread across a much wider, path, then you've got a lot more resiliency there. But
you're able to promote economic, supplier and economic diversity as well, by doing that. So
exactly, and you spread that wealth out among more communities than if it was just one large-scale manufacturer. So I know there are, though, at the same time, a lot of challenges. So, while small businesses, manufacturers can be more nimble and they don't have as much red tape, there still are certain challenges that they work with, and sometimes even that fear that they're too small to adopt some of, the latest technology. So, what are some of those current and the sort of most critical challenges that you see facing the industry, particularly for small-sized manufacturers?
Yep. And, when you speak about challenges, right, and, this is kind of like, an industry thing. And, just right off the bat, like the first thing anyone will tell you is like, I want to maintain consistent quality across my production lines, and SMBs struggle, with this because often they have limited resources, they may not have enough quality control processes in place. And even if they do, it may not be as robust. And the other thing is, they're smaller, which means they don't have, a fully trained staff, or they just don't have enough people. And that kind of ties, to, the industry, buzz about, like skills gap, right? Where workers are not fully trained or they lack necessary skills. That, does hurt, the product, the product's quality. So that's, one top of the mind challenge for small and mid-sized manufacturers. Another one that's kind of tied to this is performance variability, right? Sometimes, the performance of the product, the problems stem from, say, manufacturing defects or design flaws or issues in the production process, or you're using a lot of manual processes, which leads to a lot of errors and quality escapes. And again, this also ties back to the skills gap because you don't have enough people, fully trained and fully qualified people, to actually help you manage, your performance. And then that makes it harder to meet customer expectations. Another major challenge, which is a buzzword, and I think it's going to continue to be a buzzword for a while, is supply chain, right? I mean, manufacturers often rely on their own network of suppliers to get materials and components. And it can also get very tricky, when you're dealing in the defense sector. It's because even a small disruption, right, can have a ripple effect, and it impacts, the product's final quality and performance. So managing this, can be a bit of a challenge. Another thing which is very specific, to small companies is, there's a lot of pressure on them to reduce costs, right? But at the same time, they have to maintain or sometimes even improve the product quality and standards. And, small companies, they have to work with tight budgets, they have to face competitive pricing pressures. And then you have to also find innovative ways, to, keep up the standards, So that's a bit of a challenge, for small sized manufacturers. And, just close on heels, I would say, is keeping up, with technology, right? Because, you have all this cool stuff that's in the market, which can actually improve efficiencies, and, which can look very good and fancy, but they do come with initial high costs, right? And and there's a need for that additional technical expertise, and there could be potential disruptions when you're implementing new technology. So it's tough for SMBs to stay current without, stretching themselves too thin. And something, definitely for your audience, who are in the defense and the government sector is that, government contracts are such a, crucial, channel of revenue, right? But it comes with a lot of red tape. Like you have to achieve full compliance, with regulations, whether it's quality or cybersecurity or even documentation, right? All of that can be pretty overwhelming for them. And guess what? If you don't comply, there's penalties, right? Or you lose contract, or you end up with damaged reputations. And it's just not even managing the contracts, Chris. It's also securing them, right? Because it's highly competitive, it's complex. You have to build relationships with government contractors, with contracting officers, right? You have to show your capabilities. You have to offer competitive pricing. You have to highlight past successes. That can be very intense, to say the very least, for small enterprises. And, when you talk about, the digital era, the digital age, there's a growing threat of cyber attacks, right? So cybersecurity is a critical concern. So, and having the right and robust infrastructure to manage data can be pretty challenging. And, I would definitely urge your listeners, I've mentioned all these challenges, right? But, if they're interested, there is data to back this up. And Deltek actually conducts, an annual survey. It's called, the Deltek's GovCon Clarity Survey. And there's one for 2024 that's available on deltek.com. It provides a wealth of knowledge, as to, what the challenges are, what the trends are, and what strategies government contractors and even manufacturers specifically are, deploying, to address, some of these, these current roadblocks and challenges. So definitely urge, your, listeners to take a look at that.
So I'm sure right now every small manufacturer listening to this is going, thanks, Chris. I know what my problems are. How do I fix them? So let's take a couple of minutes and sort of talk about, how can these challenges be navigated or at least mitigated to a degree to allow smaller manufacturers to have that sustainable growth, that resilience, even in this currently evolving manufacturing landscape?
Absolutely, yeah. And, that's if I were a manufacturer and if someone is listing out, a litany of challenges, yeah, I would be like, okay, how can I fix this, right? So I get it. So there are three main areas or three pillars that I would, say that what, manufacturers should focus on: people, process, and technology, right? So the first thing is addressing your skills gap, because, people are your, that's your primary investment, right? Make sure you invest in, training them, upskilling them, have development programs where your employees can then, significantly improve, the quality that's, of the product that's being built, and, and reduce that performance variability, because it directly ties to, these challenges. And by upskilling your workforce, right, manufacturers can then ensure that their teams are well equipped, to handle advanced manufacturing processes and technologies. And when I also say people, I'm just not saying people within your organization. You also need to, build strong networks of suppliers and partnerships, right? And, you need to foster, and a very agile system where, if you have to pivot or change or, address some of these emerging trends, you're able to do that, backed by a really strong team of people internally and externally. Another aspect here, as I mentioned, is process, right? You have to take a look at the process that are weak, but that need, a bit of a leg up, and, you have to also ensure that you have robust quality systems. You've got to ensure that you have standardized processes. If you have ad hoc systems in place, if you have one process for one thing and it's all, all over the place, you're never going to actually be able to run a smooth operation. So you've got to ensure that your processes are standardized. And then, there are obviously tools, that can actually help you improve your processes. Just as an example, there are several quality management tools out there that can actually, help you digitize your quality workflows. So that way you can ensure, that you're tracking, the quality of the product that's being built. And also, that can help you, proactively, identify issues, so that way you can take corrective actions, in a timely manner. So, and then when you also talk about process, right, I think manufacturers should, definitely focus on cybersecurity and compliance, because those are non-negotiable, right? Whether you're a government contractor or not, right? There are certain standards that you have to comply with. And if your processes are not, robust and strong enough, then that's going to kind of lead to a bit of a breakdown, towards the, in your manufacturing cycle. So it's important that your processes are, again, as I mentioned, strong and robust. Finally, technology. Yes, for a small company, embracing technology may be a bit of like, oh my God, is it going to be too much? But again, technology can be a game changer, right? Whether you're talking automation, whether you're talking artificial intelligence, right? Yes, initial investment may be a little high, but then the long-term benefits in terms of productivity and cost savings is pretty substantial. So those are the three pillars.
Yeah. And so, sort of continuing upon that, we're seeing, another buzzword that's going to be around, but is very critical is, your industry 4.0 and then your automation, and especially automation when you think about, in today's manufacturers, this isn't automation to replace workers, because let's be honest, they don't have the workers they need. It's automation so that they can operate with what they are able to fill for their staffing. And sometimes, like you said, it can be a little nervous, if you've got your, nephew, Chad, who's running your IT, how do I do this? But there are a lot of steps and a lot of tools and a lot of organizations that are ready to help those manufacturers. So in that context of Industry 4.0 and automation, why is that becoming so crucial, and what sort of benefits should hopefully a manufacturer see from it?
Yes. So, when you say Industry 4.0, right? I mean, like, we've probably read about it, we've probably heard about it, but, what exactly is it, right? And real quick, right? Like it. So, if you really look into it, right? So Industry 4.0 is actually what you would call as the fourth industrial revolution. So, and what is that characterized by? Like, what does it mean? So that's where you're integrating digital technologies into your manufacturing processes, right? Basically, it represents, what I call it a shift towards smart factories, where machines and systems actually communicate, right? And, your processes, get a lot more optimized. And of course, one of the key pillars of Industry 4.0 is automation, right? And just not that, you have AI, you have cybersecurity, you have big data, advanced analytics. All these form, like key pillars of Industry 4.0. But automation, is something, where you are using technology, to perform manufacturing processes and tasks, where you are actually minimizing or reducing human intervention. And to your point, Chris, when you talk about automation, that's not replacing humans. No, you're actually augmenting human capabilities, right? So you're making your processes better, right? You're actually ensuring that, okay, if I can automate some repetitive and redundant tasks, I can actually have, Chris, who's my, production supervisor and, shop floor operator, actually focus on some critical productive tasks, right? I want them to get away from paper. I want them to go digital. So that way, you're making your shop floor a lot more smarter and more in the modern age. So that's what automation actually refers to. What are the benefits and what actually automation promises? Again, everyone thinks about, okay, is it going to make things cheaper? Yeah. Reduced human intervention means you're minimizing your labor costs, But at the same time, because it's automated, you're trying to obviously improve accuracy, and it actually helps you in that. When you talk about improving accuracy, that also means you're reducing waste, you're reducing rework, because now you have more precise manufacturing processes. Another benefit is efficiency, right? Because now you have faster production cycles, which means reduced downtime. And downtime, as we all know, is wasted money without any productive outcomes, right? So that's another advantage here. And then obviously, quality, because now you have a lot more control over your manufacturing parameters. So that way you're improving the quality of the final output. You're making yourself a lot more agile, because now you have automated systems. So if you have to make any changes, if you have to fix the process, if you have to fix the product, you have to go back, and review the design. You can do all of that because now you have flexible and programmable automation systems. Another critical aspect is data, right? But when you automate, you're now facilitating a system which can automatically collect and analyze data. So that way the insights, that you gain out of it can help you make sound financial, operational, and business decisions. And finally, scalability, because, yes, you may be a small manufacturer, but you're still thinking of how do I grow, right? Or how do I diversify? And so with automation, small businesses can scale their operations without having to, increase, their labor, within their organization. You can do this a lot more smartly if you deploy automation as a strategy.
Yeah, I started my career in a small factory building pallets, and we'd have to throw around 4.5 inch by 7.5 inch by 16 foot long cans of wood in the saw shop. And trust me, I would have been happy to have an automation system that would pick up and move that for me. But, you really hit upon something also, though, on let's pull out that piece about data and even the compliance. Especially for manufacturers, and if you're doing any government work, CMMC is a growing importance to them, and having that compliance, having that data management. But also, I always say having all the data in the world is useless if you can't actually pull insights out of it. And so that's really where, I think it becomes critical for that data management and being able to access the data in the ways you need. So knowing that you work for Deltek, which focuses on software with this sort of stuff, how can manufacturers and really, how do they enhance those operations using that data, and how can they have effective data management?
Yeah. And, Chris, this is such an important topic, and I'm so glad we're discussing this. So, when you talk about, data management, right? One of the things that comes up a lot, especially in the manufacturing realm, is, how can I have, one system where all the information is stored, right? So that way I don't have to look, in 5 different places, or I don't have to look at a spreadsheet, right? That's one of the because, a lot of times data is stored in a spreadsheet. You don't know which revision number you're looking at. Okay, version 5 is where, someone, X person was using, and suddenly they're like, no, version 10 is what you're supposed to. It's just, it's chaos, right? So, but when you talk about data management, right? So the common parlance is, as we call it, central repositories of information, or as people also refer to as single source of truth, right? This is where, all data that's related to your manufacturing, whether it's people, whether it's processes, whether it's operations, quality, performance, all of this, is stored in this single repository. It's stored, it's managed, and you can access it from this place, right? So there are 3 critical aspects when it comes to data management. The first one is what I call the data governance, right? This is where businesses have to drive and manage data consistency, integrity, data accessibility, data analysis, everything for the final decision making, right? And when you have effective data governance, you can then, eliminate discrepancies, duplication, and even manipulation of data, right? And then you're also able to manage user access, to ensure that only authorized personnel have access to data, and also some very specific kind of data. And you're also able to promote collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst, different departments. And once you figure out how to govern all the data that you have, then your data analysis now becomes a lot more meaningful, because now you're able to gain a lot more intelligent and actionable insights for better decision making and make informed choices that can help, with in your business operations. So that's the very first critical aspect, when you talk about data management. Second, what I would say is about compliance, right? Once you have all this information stored in one location where, you have, the critical stakeholders having access to it, now you're also able to easily track and report on all compliance-related information, right? Now, we all have compliance requirements, compliance obligations. Every company is different. But then, the fundamental over here is that you're able to store it in one place, right? And then when you're getting audited, this central repository ensures that all your necessary documentation now is readily available to you and to your auditor, right? So that's a second critical aspect. And finally, just smoother business operations, right? Just imagine, if you have, everything in one place, easily accessible, you can pull data, you can pull insights, you can, create dashboards for yourself. Like you're now able to, see, information that is driving your business a lot more easily, right? So extracting the data mining aspect becomes so much more easier. And now, your systems, can also, again, communicate using this one single repository. And, your business can then grow and sustain and thrive and adapt to, your growing business demands a lot more easily and, make it a lot more efficient.
So we know that manufacturers, we're moving and it's going to digitalization, and there's a lot more connected machines. I mean, there's no stopping the train. It's on the tracks and it's barreling down. But we also know at the same time that manufacturers are a key target for bad actors. And so as especially small and mid-sized manufacturers who may not be as familiar or may not have a gigantic IT team to address this, what sort of strategies and technologies are there that they can employ to sort of navigate those cybersecurity challenges and ensure that they have data integrity?
Absolutely. And, yes, I mean, every company is different, right? So their strategies obviously will vary. But, small businesses can still, deploy certain strategies that can be useful, without it, causing too much of a dent, to your bottom line, right? So, they may want to invest in solutions like, firewalls or intrusion detection systems, or having encryption for sensitive data, right? Because, I mean, you may be a small business, but you could be dealing with, some really interesting contracts where, data is sensitive. Maybe it's a government contract. You want to protect it. You want to protect your data and your customer data as well, right? So you may want to definitely invest in, solutions like that. And make sure, you have regular updates and patches, that protects, your systems against any vulnerabilities or threats. Make sure you implement frequent backups, for your information and store them in a secure place. Use strict access controls, right? Use multi-factor authentication that limits access to only authorized personnel, right? Again, these are not difficult solutions. They can be easily, implemented. Another important aspect is, your employees, right? They are your first line of defense, so it's easy to train them, where they can recognize potential threats, and ensure, that they can implement cybersecurity best practices. And another thing that I would definitely recommend is, incident response planning. Develop and maintain an incident response plan where you can address and recover from cyber incidents. For instance, the recent Microsoft outage that we had, right? I mean, Microsoft addressed this issue. They collaborated with CrowdStrike and other cloud providers. They were able to, guide and provide updates to their customers to help them navigate through the situation, right? So most of the companies were affected. We're able to fairly resolve it, in a matter of days because, okay, you had the support. But the point I'm trying to make is that incidents like this can happen, and you want to be prepared for it. And you want to make sure that you actually have a plan where you can actually recover from such incidents quickly. And finally, one thing I would definitely, encourage is third-party audits, right? Make sure you have, external experts, coming and, auditing you so they can provide unbiased, assessment, of your business's cybersecurity posture and, also maybe recommend improvements if needed. So these are the few things, like any company can do. It's not like anything, earth shattering, but these are basic things that can actually help you, protect your, company and your systems from any potential attack.
So you hit upon a whole lot of really good topics, and, with that data, it's sort of, you think about this as a constant buildup, and as you get more pieces, there's now more opportunities that get unlocked. And I know one of those that is a true benefit to a lot of shops is going more towards a paperless shop floor. That, this digitalization, this data that they now have actually enables them to. They want to get away from my desk where you can't find a single paper at all because it's so many piles of them. And how does that benefit a small manufacturer to go towards a paperless shop floor?
Yeah. So when you talk about a shop floor, right? The first thing anyone would think of or logically is that it's a labor and a data intensive environment. You're dealing with so many moving parts, right? And I'm not talking about the parts that you're manufacturing or assembling. It's just anything outside of that. There's just so many things going on. And manufacturing and production supervisors, have to, apart from ensuring, that your order pipeline is progressing smoothly, they have to also make sure, that the shop floor is a stress-free place. It's a smooth and a well-oiled machine, if you will. And moving towards a paperless shop floor is definitely a very effective and a sound strategy. Because when you're thinking like a manufacturer or a person who's on the shop floor, the first thing that anyone thinks about, okay, I have to deal with different work orders, right? And when you think about work orders, when you think about travelers, all you're thinking about is, as you mentioned, like paper, right? Paper's everywhere. But the minute you digitize these work orders, right, what you can do now is instantly generate and distribute those work orders electronically, right? You can eliminate paper travelers because now everything is now digitized. So what happens is you're reducing time spent on all this paperwork, and then you can actually free up so much time for your shop floor personnel and your technicians, saying, okay, go focus on the more productive tasks, right? That's like the first thing you can think of, right? The second thing I would say, the advantage over here is, again, on the shop floor, you're trying to talk to somebody, you're trying to access information, you have to walk, across, to your workstation, and, maybe someone's work desk is like great, it's clean, it's easy to find something, but I mean, sometimes it's not. But, with going paperless, what happens is technicians can access and update their job or their project status, digitally, right? They can actually input information now much more, in a faster way, because now you don't have to like write it on a paper and then have someone upload it or input it, right? You can also, access documents, right? Whether it's a job spec or a drawing, or a quick reference on what was that work instruction all about, right? You can actually even pull that information like on like a tablet when you're, walking around the shop floor, right? So having all this, makes your operations so much more easier and a lot more streamlined, right? Imagine, you have someone who's tracking your quality metrics. When a job status or a project status is updated, now guess what? Your entire system starts getting updated with all these metrics, and you can actually monitor your quality in real time. And you can check the progress of your manufacturing process, again, real time. And you're able to do all of this because you have a centralized repository of information, right? So that's another important piece when you talk about paperless. And then finally, when you talk about the shop floor, I think our manufacturing audience, can relate to this, right? The minute you say, I have an audit that's coming up, like, it's almost like, oh my God, I have to gather all this information, I have to gather documents, I have to dive into my this folder, A folder or B folder, and pull all this information. Guess what? If everything is now stored electronically, your audit prep process is, it's brought down, I don't know by how many days now. If it took you like a week to prep, maybe it takes you a day or maybe a matter of few hours, depending on how big of a company you are, right? So makes the audit process easier, and you're able to comply a lot more better because now everything is, literally at your fingertips. So paperless is definitely, a sound strategy, for manufacturers who are thinking of, overhauling their operations.
Well, and you don't have to stay up at night, with today's more nimble manufacturing, you see, even minute changes to how a product is manufactured or maybe assembled, or there might be a slight change. And now you're not wondering, oh crap, did I get every instruction order sheet and swap it out with the new one? Because there's only that one order to look from.
Absolutely. And to your point, right, change management, right, it is a big thing, in the industry, whether it's organizational change or even process change, right? Managing those changes becomes a lot more easier, when you go digital. So that's, definitely, another, and you don't have to disrupt your entire operations if you have to make a change somewhere, right? It's like the train doesn't have to stop. You can quickly make that quick change and, let that train keep chugging along. So yeah, absolutely.
So you hit upon it a little bit during that, but with this centralized repository information and your single source of truth, where are a lot of manufacturers seeing that significant impact on efficiency and productivity, namely, especially for those small and mid-sized manufacturers?
Yeah. So when you talk about, there's a huge impact, when you say centralized repositories, right? Before I even talk about that, why are we even talking about centralized repositories? The primary reason is because for a lot of manufacturers, this is again across the spectrum, there are a lot of siloed and disparate systems, because, you have one system for quality, you have another system for, your ERP, one system for manufacturing, one system for some testing, right? And all of this creates data fragmentation. Right. And then there's a lack of cohesion, that hampers decision making. Then there's an increased risk of miscommunication because you have different systems in place. Right. And overall, it makes your production process a lot more sluggish. Right. So let's use a hypothetical example to explain this aspect. Right. Say you have a small manufacturer, they're producing, say, high precision gears, for instance. And, the manufacturing process involves multiple stages. Right. Design, procurement, machining, assembly, quality, so on and so forth. And before, they say this company implemented a centralized system, each department had its own data system. Say, design team used, one software for managing all their CAD files. The assembly line had another system. Quality had another system or another software for their testing. And what is that? What happens, in a situation like this, right? When you say different systems, you can pretty much bet your last penny, that there will be conflicting information, right? For instance, like your design software will say, okay, I've updated this design and this is what our engineers and the production line techs should be using. But then guess what? The production line may be still working off an old design because they're using now different systems. Or if the quality assurance team found a defect, right? Then now they would have to manually communicate this to the other teams, which would, again, delay your response times. And in that interim, when you're communicating, you're allowing for more defective gears to be manufactured. But imagine if this company actually had integrated systems, right? Where you're integrating data from, different departments, right? You're integrating data from your manufacturing team, from your quality team. Then what happens? Again, right off the bat, you are setting the stage, for a lot more smoother and a streamlined process, because whether it's your design engineers, whether it's your production guys, whether it's your quality people, everybody is now working off one single system, right? So this integration of data, this integration of platform is critical. And that's where centralized, systems play a huge role, because now, whether you're talking about any manufacturing data, whether it is material requirements, whether it's machine settings, whether it's work orders, whether it's quality metrics, all are centrally stored, easily accessible by all the relevant stakeholders, right? Your quality control checkpoints, whether it's supplier quality or it's product quality, all of that is now embedded in your production plan, right? And then as production progresses, shop floor operators can now input, real-time data, whether it's about their machine runs, machine performance, production rates, material usage, all of this can be captured quickly. And even your quality folks, right? They inspect, and if they are able to say, okay, check, okay, it goes in the system. Nope, there's a defect here. Nope, there's a deviation here. That goes in the system as well. So, and then if there's a defect, what happens is with an integrated system, you're able to communicate the problem immediately to the production team. So you can actually tell, okay, this is the batch that is problematic, or this is the order that has a problem. And then it actually tells you the nature of the problem that is being detected. And then you go back and investigate. Again, how are you investigating? Using the same data on the same platform that everybody is using. So, and then you can obviously initiate corrective actions promptly. So what I'm trying to say is that, with a centralized system, you can integrate your data from your production team, from your quality team. You can actually, build and develop comprehensive reports so that way you can actually take a look at, what's trending, the recurring issues, and what needs to be improved. And finally, which is very important in manufacturing, is a feedback loop. Like any information that you get out of your analytics, that you analyze, that you review, that you assess, that can actually ensure that you can, that there are lessons learned from each production run that you can apply to future productions. And just to give, our audience a little bit of an example over here, and you can even check this out on deltec.com, we have, what we call cost point manufacturing, TIP QA and TIP SFE. And, for manufacturers, it's important, right? This cost point and TIP, they offer the best-in-class integration. So what does it mean? That means there's a seamless data flow between two sets of solutions that manage manufacturing and quality, right? Which means you're able to actually track your entire manufacturing cycle right from that order that you get right until shipping. Everything can be tracked easily. And not just that, it's all done in a very compliant fashion, ensuring, whether it's industry regulations, whether it's government regulations, all of that can be complied with, within a solution like that. So yeah, having smart digital tools can definitely, help, in this journey.
So I know we could sit here and talk all day about this content because there really is so much great information and so much opportunity for the manufacturers, but I think your boss might get a little upset if I hog your entire day. So, as we look at sort of closing out, are there some specific factors or steps that a small or mid-sized manufacturer can take to assess their needs and be able to select the appropriate digital tools? Because there are sometimes so many out there for them to look at.
Oh, yeah. So when you say digital tools, right, it's a wide spectrum. It could be a software, it could be other technologies. So yes, but how do you determine what works best for you, right? And it's, again, fairly simple, right? The first thing is you have to reflect, right? Understand what are your organization's challenges, right? Identify the areas that you feel, automation can have the most impact. And if you're not able to do that, consult stakeholders, right? Whether it's internal, external, conduct surveys, hire consultants. Maybe they can help you identify, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be improved, or what new processes you need to introduce, and that's the starting point. I feel, that assessment. And then once you assess that, right, then you can research the tools that's available. But again, you have to obviously find something that is best suited for your business needs, right? If you're looking at automating, some redundant tasks, right? Look at those solutions, right? Or if you're looking at, if you're very customer centric or customer focused, look for those tools, which can enhance customer interactions, responsiveness, that way where you're automating order processing, right? Or customer inquiries. But whatever solutions you choose, there are a couple of things that, that you should absolutely keep in mind. One is ensure that, that these solutions can support compliance and regulatory requirements, especially manufacturing. It is, a highly regulated industry, so make sure, that, you have, that you're looking for solutions that have features, that address your challenges and your compliance needs. And also make sure that, that the solution that you pick is user friendly, and that, there's comprehensive training and support available, because, you have to, your employees are your biggest stakeholders. So employee adoption is important. So when you have a solution that's easy to use and implement, then their buy-in is a lot more faster. They can get trained on that a lot more quickly, and, they can actually start using those tools, to its maximum potential. And goes without saying, we're living in this digital age. Make sure, the solutions that you pick and choose have robust, security features that can actually protect your data and also comply with privacy regulations, because you are also dealing with customer-related information. So, So this journey, is a continuous process. So you need to keep an open mind, right? Just because you have a plan in place, guess what? They can change. So you have to make sure, you're ready to learn, ready to adapt, and be prepared to regularly assess and reassess and adjust, your digital transformation strategies as needed.
So to just wrap up, I'm going to grab one last thought and piece from you. Is there sort of any final advice or statement that you would give to manufacturers who are hesitant about starting this digital transformation journey?
Yeah, and I empathize with the hesitancy. I get it, but my advice would be is start small and scale gradually, right? Don't feel pressure that you have to overhaul everything at once, right? Begin with a small manageable project or an area where these tools could have a noticeable impact, right? And then once you do that, then you're able to demonstrate the value, and then you can build confidence. And then you can, then it makes it easier for you to expand, your efforts over time. Focus on those quick wins, like the ones, where the impact can be felt right away. Because once you show that immediate benefits, then you can also build that momentum and that support that's needed for larger transformation initiatives. Again, ensure that your team is well prepared for this transition, because that makes the adoption process a lot more smoother, and, it helps maximize the benefits. So make sure you educate and talk to your users, your team, your stakeholders. And then, let's face it, right? It's okay to seek expert guidance. I mean, sometimes we don't have all the answers, right? Or sometimes your management may hit an impasse, right? They're not able to agree on anything. So it's okay to consult experts or leverage, maybe industry-specific resources, because they'll be able to provide, those valuable insights or help you navigate through, some roadblocks or some complexities, so then what happens is you're ensuring, that you're making those informed decisions and choosing the right solutions and the right path for your company, right? And again, one more thing I'll definitely stress over here. When you talk about digital transformation, it is an investment for your future. It is a long-term project. It's not something that can happen overnight. Yes, there may be initial challenges, upfront costs, and what have you, but, it makes your business smarter and competitive. And in the end, it's all worth the effort. And before I wrap this up, I definitely want to tell, your users something, because I don't want them to feel like, oh my God, what do I do now, right? So, I mean, if you're not sure, how to go about it, where to start, reach out to Deltek. I mean, we're here to support you. I mean, and as Chris mentioned right in the beginning about our company, our mission is to actually help project-based businesses succeed and grow. We are your partners here, whether you want to improve project efficiency or you want to transform your shop floor operations, or if you want to transform your quality management systems, we have the necessary tools and support to achieve these goals. And why am I able to speak about this so confidently? It's because we are continuously investing in research and development to stay ahead of the industry trends, so that our customers can actually benefit, from cutting edge solutions. And finally, just the last point here, Chris, and since Paris Olympics is right around the corner, I just want to use an Olympics analogy over here, right? The journey of digital transformation, is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? It's about making those continuous improvements over time. So again, take that first step, learn from it, and then keep moving forward.
You got that right. Take the step. The first step is actually taking a step. So, Padma, I will never tire of talking to the people who are really passionate and committed to helping manufacturers, especially those small and mid-sized, succeed and grow. So thank you for taking the time today to chat with us and share these insights for manufacturers. If listeners do want to learn more about Deltek, where should they go?
Yep. So first of all, thanks, Chris. Thanks for this opportunity. It was my absolute pleasure to have this discussion with you. And I agree, this could be this conversation could be a lot longer, but yes, time is definitely, a constraint here. But if our, listeners want to learn more about Deltek, please do visit, deltek.com. There's a lot of material, that on manufacturing that you can consume. Or if you want to just reach out to us directly, email us at info@deltek.com. where if you want to talk about a specific product or if you want to demo, we can definitely, take that conversation further from there. So we're here for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us.
And to stay up to date about what's happening in manufacturing today and hear more podcasts, visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org.